Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, July 7th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, again, as always, we have a great number of feasts today, so to get us started off, we will head to Our Lady of Roermond in the Netherlands. There's a wide variety of dates here, so it's not entirely sure. I think it's the Abbot Orsini gives us 1380. But if you look up information on the site, it says that in the late 17th century, the devotion to this image of Our Lady was connected with a story about a shepherd who in the 15th century found the statue of Mary in a well. Now, according to tradition, this statue was the cause of many miracles, and they built a chapel dedicated to Our Lady on the place where it was found. We're told the present chapel dates from 1896, because the larger number of pilgrims required a larger chapel, right? So it was built over the old chapel to serve as long as possible. Again, the Abbot Orsini mentions 1380, but we're told that the statue itself probably came from a workshop in Mechelen in Belgium around the 1500s. The first time that we really have mention of it is in a chronicle from 1578, but it was already known then for its answered prayers. Also, we're told that today is the dedication of Our Lady of Arras in the year 1484 by Bishop Peter de Ranchecourt in the city of Arras. The city was built by Saint Vaast, the Bishop of Arras, in the year 542, according to Baronius, the church historian. However, the Normans promptly destroyed it in 583, and then after it was rebuilt, it was burnt by lightning in the year 1030, and then built again in the year 1040. It's just a very difficult place to live, I suppose. Now, I think we'd already mentioned this, but Arras is famous for another miracle that took place in 371, recorded by St. Jerome, in fact. There was a time of great famine in the region, and the inhabitants of Arras turned to Our Lady in prayer, begging for relief. But the famine was relieved in a miraculous way. We're told that something like white wool mixed with heavy rain fell from heaven at Arras, right? So it was sort of a heavenly bread, and they commonly called it manna. We're told that some remains of this manna, this heavenly manna, were still seen in the church dedicated to Mary until the time of the French Revolution. Likewise, it is related, again, the Abbot Orsini telling us that in 1401, Our Lady of Hout in Heinholt restored to life a child of Brussels who had drowned in a well, right? This child, having been taken out of the well dead, was devoted to Our Lady, and then, I guess when presented, he immediately came to life, right? There's the chronicles, I don't know where the Abbot Orsini's source is, but it says that there is a recording that in 1428, Our Lady of Hout in Heinholt, France, restored a child to life after he had been dead for several days. And that was because he hadn't been baptized. So he came back to life to receive baptism, and he lived 5 hours after receiving the sacrament, and which said that then he melted away by degrees like snow in the presence of 75 persons. What's interesting is that the Benedictines have a monastery there, or at least had a monastery, where they sing the praises of Mary in all of the canonical hours. Right? Very interesting. And last but not least, we head down to Monte Rosso in La Spezia, Liguria, Italy, where they celebrate Nostra Signora di Sovior. That's one of their towns. So the reason why they celebrate it, because when we hear the feast days don't relate to today, July 7th. But the story goes that as the Lombard hordes approached in 641, the villagers of Sovior buried their statue of Our Lady for safekeeping, and they fled to the Mediterranean, which is now to a town of what is now the town of Monte Rosso. So 100 years later, on July 7th, 740, the parish priest was hunting at dawn. There he goes, just out looking for game, when he noticed a dove fly into a hole in the ground. His efforts to uncover the spot were thwarted by a sandstone slab, and so he returned the next day with 3 helpers with shovels, who unearthed a wooden statue. Now, when the priest tried to carry it home, it became too heavy to move, so he left it there. On the following day, the people who came to see the statue found it moved to the top of a nearby chestnut tree. Right? They brought it down, but for several days it repeatedly reappeared in the tree, which was an indication to the villagers to build a chapel on that very spot. Today, the 16th century octagonal chapel stands on the bluff overlooking Monte Rosso. Right? We're told that the venerated statue is a Gothic Pietà from the 1400s, crowned August 10th, 1749. Right? It's entirely possible, they said, that this is not the original statue. Right? And the feast of Nostra Senora di Sovior is celebrated on the Feast of the Assumption, August 15th. But again, it was today that the statue was found after being lost for 100 years. So that's what we're celebrating today in the Marian world on July 7th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we continue with Meditation 86, entitled The Heart of Mary. Yesterday we considered the excellence of this Heart of Mary, and today, in point 2, we will consider its sanctity, its holiness. From this most perfect union between both hearts spring the marvelous sanctity of the Heart of Mary. Sanctity consists in a participation with God, in a love which transforms the soul into God, in an elevation which makes our soul a true image and likeness of God. God fixed this aim when creating man and shaping his heart. He wanted the King of creatures to be according to his own image and likeness. This is why a human heart reaches the perfection of being God's image, of having in itself a likeness to the heart of God, when he is able to exclaim with St. Paul, "It is not I, it is Christ that lives in me." Then he has reached this perfection. Then he has attained sanctity. But which heart could in this compare with that of Mary? Which heart was closer, more intimately united and more perfectly partaking in the life of God than hers? Which heart has more totally transformed into God? Which could claim more truly to be an image or likeness of God than hers? Where could be found a better mirror without blemish, capable of reflecting the sanctity of God more perfectly and faithfully? To which heart could those words of St. Paul, "It is Christ that lives in me," more fittingly apply than to the heart of Mary, not excluding the heart of St. Paul or that of any other saint? If you pause to consider each of the most important perfections of God, and you apply each to our Heavenly Mother, you will see that all those divine perfections reflected in her heart by virtue of this close union and ineffable communication of her heart with that of God. The heart of Mary is the tabernacle of the Godhead. It is the living temple of divinity, where God has come down to fix his dwelling, where he wishes to abide forever. All is holy in this heart. Nothing in it, not the lightest movement, no thought, no desire, no love, no word, no action, which is not entirely holy. Everything is saintly in it. Now place your poor heart in front of this seat of sanctity, of this mirror without blemish, and compare yours with hers. Confronted with Mary's, you will easily detect some vice, some fault, some imperfections in your heart. Insist and study this comparison, because you will certainly derive from it a great increase in your love towards the most pure heart of Mary, and an increase in the contempt of self and of the imperfections and faults which so deform your heart. For today's reading from the Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we start with chapter 7. He that is mighty hath done great things for me, and holy is his name. If you remember, this last section of the text is John Eudes' commentary on the Magnificat, and so let's hear what he has to say about this line. He that is mighty hath done great things for me, and holy is his name. In the preceding verse, the Blessed Virgin prophesies that all generations shall call her blessed. In this verse, she reveals the reasons for this honor, namely, the great things that God has done to her. What are these great things? Let us listen to St. Augustine. It is a great thing, he says, for a virgin to be a mother without the cooperation of man. It is a great thing for her to have borne in her womb the Word of God the Father, to have clothed him with her flesh. It is a great thing for her who characterizes herself as a handmaid to become the mother of the Creator. It is a great thing, says St. Antoninus, to have created heaven and earth out of nothing. It is a great thing to have brought manna down from heaven in order to nourish the chosen people in the desert for 40 years. It is a great thing to have given the Israelites possession of the promised land after having exterminated all the kings and people who inhabited it. All the miracles that our Savior performed in Judea, giving sight to the blind, driving out evils from the bodies of those who were possessed, curing the sick, restoring the dead to life, are great and marvelous things. But the mystery of the Incarnation, which the infinite power of God wrought in the Blessed Virgin, incomparably surpasses all these other things. It is what prompts her to say, "He that is mighty hath done great things." Here are the great things, says St. Thomas of Villanova, that God wrought in the Most Holy Virgin. He elevated her to such a high degree of grandeur that all the eyes of men and angels cannot scan that eminence. He transformed this granddaughter of Adam into the mother of her own Creator, the Lady of the world, the Queen of heaven, and the Empress of all creatures. A new prodigy appeared in the sky, in the world, to the great wonderment of heaven and earth. A God-man, a man-God. God became man, and man united with God. Prodigy of prodigies, miracle of miracles, after which there remains nothing on earth worthy to be admired.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.